Lawmakers are now taking aim at how Roth IRAs are used and abused. Robert Frank joins us right now with more on how this could impact affluent and wealthy retirees. Robert, good morning.
Good morning, Becky. Well, you could call it the Peter Thiel rule. House Democrats proposing a series of measures to prevent the ultra-wealthy from using Roth IRAs to shelter their wealth. This comes after that ProPublica article that detailed Peter Thiel's $5 billion Roth IRA. That is believed to be the largest ever. So there are three proposed changes here. First, it would effectively limit IRA accounts to $10 million. Once the balance reaches $10 million, taxpayers can no longer make contributions. Second, if your balance of the IRA, Roth IRA, and defined benefit plan totals more than $10 million, you have to distribute half of the amount over $10 million until you get back down under that balance. And finally, the rules close a loophole for what's called mega Roth IRAs. Now, to get around the income limits right now, wealthy savers were contributing to IRAs and then converting them into more tax-friendly Roth IRAs. The new rules prevent those making more than $400,000 a year from doing those conversions. The House also seeking to limit the kinds of investments you can put into IRAs. That, of course, follows Peter Thiel's use of putting private shares of PayPal into that Roth IRA, which, of course, became the largest $5 billion Roth IRA ever. Becky?
I mean, that seems like a good idea. Probably the most controversial thing about what Peter Thiel did with that was taking private shares, valuing them at what they say, what he said they were going to be valued at that point, and then running with that. The ideas of a limit, that makes sense, too. I mean, these rules are put in to try and encourage average Americans to save so that they have more for a retirement. $10 million seems like a reasonable amount. I don't see anybody necessarily screaming about these rules. Do you?
No, I don't. I actually called Charles Schwab and many of the other companies that provide IRAs and Roth IRAs. They said really no comment. So we haven't seen a pushback. And that's partly because there are only about 28,000 IRA accounts that have balances of more than $5 million, even smaller number, of course, that are over $10 million. So I don't think it's going to raise much revenue, but therefore it's not going to raise much pushback from the industry, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. The reason you have these rules set up for tax beneficent reasons for this would be to encourage average Americans to save. So I don't see a big problem with this.
That's right.
The only thing is, if you wanted to convert, if you make more than $400,000 and you wanted to convert an IRA into a Roth IRA, you better do it quickly.
That's right. That's right. And I'm sure we're going to see a lot of that. And it is also interesting, even though it is a small number, 28,000 that have balances over $5 million, that number has tripled over the past decade. And that's largely because of the performance of the stock market. So, yes, it's a small number now, but you could see that number growing over time. And you're right. This is one of those few tax policies from Washington that does make sense.
You're right. Good one. Thanks, Robert.